Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to begin. Let me type this in here. We're going to begin with the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, first chapter, and we're going to begin with text 5, I believe. Let me just double check, make sure we have it. It is doesn't give you a, I believe it's text 5. Yes, I've got the wrong verse. Okay, yeah, text, yeah, so it's text 5. Let's put in text 5. Oops. And we'll save the title, yes. Seems now I have to find it. I lost it on my phone, and I've got the keyboard on my phone, and I don't want the keyboard, and I don't know how to get rid of it. I am in the database for Android. Excuse me. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we get our daily reading of Bhagavatam. Get purified by Prabhupada's transcendental words. Tasmat parata sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari shuddhavya kyatitavyascha smartavyascheha thabhayam tasmat bharata sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari Shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyas chehatabhayam. Let's see if you can understand the meaning of this verse by the word meanings. Tasmat, for this reason, Bharata, O descendant of Bharata, Sarvatma, the Supersoul, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, Ishvaraha, the Controller, Hari, the Lord who vanquishes all miseries. Shrotavya is to be heard. Kirtitavyaha, to be glorified. Cha, also. Smartavya, to be remembered. Cha, and. Ichata, of one who desires. Abhaya, freedom. Well, abhaya means fearlessness. I think it's quite clear what the verse means. Therefore, Bharat, the Supersoul Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, who is the controller, who vanquishes all misery, to be heard, to be glorified, remembered, if you want freedom. One who desires freedom. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the Supersoul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Purport. In the previous verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has described how the foolish, materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. It's a nice poetic statement we could use for a song. Are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. When I was young, there was a song, all we are is dust in the wind. You may remember that song. I don't know the band. Does anyone know the band name? I'm going to go to chat. Do my best to get there. Boing. There I am. Okay. Anybody? If you know that song, the name of the band, all we are is dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. It's been a long time, I can't remember. So, to be vanquished in the air of oblivion, if you're a poet or a songwriter, you can remember that statement. There are many poetic statements in Prabhupada's books. It would really be nice if someone wrote a poem or a song, and it was entirely composed of statements of Prabhupada, picked from different places in his books, because there are many beautiful statements like that. Developing, sleeping, material conditions of life, sleeping, indulging in sex, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Amazing. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death in the 8,400,000 species of life, the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized man, and then the civilized human form, which is the chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi, or the enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be, because it all belongs to Krishna. So as Prabhupada has said, if you're not using it for Krishna, you are a thief. Of course, nobody really feels like a thief. Everybody thinks, well, Krishna gave it to us to use, so we're not stealing, we're just using what he gave. And Prabhupada's saying here, if he's the proprietor and you're thinking everything's for me, then you're a thief. Doesn't make you feel good, I know, but sometimes you have to feel bad before you can rectify the situation. This is the process of doing work. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 27. Also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's behalf, on the Lord's account. Who knows 9:27? Yat karoshi yadashnashi yat jahoshi didasi yat yat tapasyasi konteya tad kurusha amararpanam. I believe that's 9:27. All you do, all you eat, all you offer and give away should be done as an offering unto me. Sometimes I would sing that as a song. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away should be done as an offering unto me, as an offering unto me. The idea is if you're Krishna conscious, you're going to do that anyway. But if you're not Krishna conscious, then you have to force yourself to do it by understanding that everything that you own, you don't own. So everything is Krishna's, everything should be utilized for him. When you love Krishna, you don't have to deal on that level of consciousness, you just do it. Just like Prabhupada gives the example, when you see a flower, and a young boy will think, yes, let me offer this to my girlfriend. And a devotee will think, let me offer this to Krishna. So wherever there's love, there will be offering. You want to give to those you love. And so, higher levels of Krishna consciousness, naturally you're going to give everything to Krishna. In lower levels of Krishna consciousness, you want to we want to enjoy things for ourselves, so therefore Krishna gives this verse. Everything you do, it's for me. Everything you offer, it's for me. Everything you give away, for me. Everything you eat, first you offer to me, like that. Sometimes we're really hungry and we don't want to offer it to Krishna, we just want to eat. The animal within takes over. The Bhagavad Gita 9:27 also. Instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, One should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the Supersoul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings. And thus, by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in His creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. That's amazing. So if you just hear and chant, you'll become successful in everything. That may not make sense logically, but anyway, we have faith in Prabhupada's words that if we hear and chant, it'll put us in the proper consciousness, it'll purify our heart, and then everything will work out the way it's meant to work out. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Sukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. Of course, so much of suffering is due to our consciousness. And in this verse, Prabhupada is glorifying the process of hearing. One of the most obvious things is just that people misunderstand what is spiritual life. So hearing removes all misconceptions. And as we know, as the people have so many crazy ideas about who is God and who they are. So, hearing removes misconceptions. We understand very clearly our position, the position of Krishna, and exactly who is Krishna. We don't have to speculate. Otherwise, without hearing from authority, you're forced to speculate, and if we speculate, we will always fall short of the truth. And sometimes I go on YouTube and listen to other spiritual speakers to see what they're talking about, or listen to self-development gurus. And one of the experiences I always have is what I call the brick wall experience. In trying to understand something or trying to explain something, they hit a brick wall. It's not their fault. As conditioned souls, they're limited. And we're not limited because we hear from Srila Prabhupada. I mean, we're limited as conditioned souls, but we're not limited in our understanding because we're hearing from Prabhupada and we're hearing from Shastra. So they hit this brick wall, and you can see that they're oftentimes trying to grasp something, and they're doing it through speculation, trying to get some insight by looking logically at something. And, sometimes they do get insight, but the insight always hits a brick wall. It can't go beyond that. So I always feel unhappy for them. I feel unhappy for the people that are listening to them. And I feel very grateful to have Srila Prabhupada's words and guidance. And, as I've often said, Prabhupada said we should feel like a fool before a spiritual master. And so that's the idea. You feel like a fool because you're limited by this brick wall. You can't go beyond it. You can't see beyond it. You don't know what is beyond the brick wall. And that's what's beyond the three modes of nature. So we can't conceive of that unless our consciousness is above those modes. And so hearing brings us to a realization, and it also gives us a glimpse of what's beyond the modes of nature. And the only way we can understand that is we have to hear from someone who's beyond the modes of nature. So when people who are not beyond the modes of nature trying to understand what is ultimate truth, obviously they fail, because they can only understand what is in this world and make logical assumptions about what may be beyond that. And some of those assumptions are good, as Prabhupada appreciated Socrates. He understood he wasn't the body. But obviously, to understand the nature of Krishna and God, it's not possible unless Krishna tells you, or Krishna's devotee tells you what he's like. So that's part of the glory of hearing, and the other glory is just the purification of it. So it's just the sound vibration itself. Even you're not understanding everything, but the sound vibration is purifying. Sometimes even Prabhupada would give class in Hindi, and he'd want the devotees to attend the class, and they didn't understand Hindi. He said, you'll become purified by the vibration. And sometimes, I mentioned this before, sometimes we didn't understand things in Prabhupada's books, and Prabhupada was asked if it's esoteric and we don't understand, then what should we do? He said, just read it, and read it again, and read it again, and read it again. And by hearing, you'll understand, because it's not only intellectually you'll understand by rereading, but you'll also become purified by the sound vibration. So that part of being present to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, as I said yesterday, is by hearing that vibration, by being in the presence of the Bhagavatam, we become situated at least in the mode of goodness. So just that vibration purifies us of the influence of the mode of passion, at least while we're hearing. And if it's purifying us of the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance while we're hearing, it's doing something to cleanse the heart. And then finally this verse says that we become fearless. Now, one of the reasons we become fearless, although you may not feel that you're fearless, but ultimate fearlessness means that we have shelter in Krishna. And so we know that whatever happens, ultimately Krishna's there to take care of us. So that kind of fearlessness is there. We're not in ignorance about what happens, as they say, on the other side. The other side means on the other side of death. We don't want to die. We're all afraid, in a sense, because it's something we're not prepared for. It's not something we do every day, and we lose the things we're attached to. But ultimately, we have this confidence, this shelter. That's one of the symptoms of surrender, that Krishna will maintain me and Krishna will protect me. So surrender devotees have that. Even you feel you don't, you actually do, to some degree. Yes, we all do. And that's just because we have knowledge, then we know that Krishna is there, and we know that because we are taking shelter of Prabhupada, that Prabhupada will protect us. We're being protected by the process. We're being protected by the words of Guru and Krishna. So we have that kind of fearlessness. And the more we hear, the more clear we get about what Krishna consciousness is. And the more clear we get, then the more faith develops. The more faith develops, the more we become fearless. You could kind of say faith and fearlessness go together. Sometimes people would ask Prabhupada, are you convinced? Are you convinced? Prabhupada once said, how could I write these books? How could I write so many books if I wasn't convinced? So when you're convinced, that means you have faith. And if you have faith in what Krishna says, then there's a kind of fearlessness. It doesn't mean if you see some big man coming to steal your wallet, you'll be like Prahlad Maharaj necessarily. But you'll know that ultimately your spiritual life is intact and you're protected. In that you understand karmically, so many things may happen. If these things are meant to happen, we have a greater ability to accept adversity, knowing that there's some karmic reaction or some desire that Krishna wants this to happen to bring us closer to Him. So there's that kind of fearlessness. I mean, when I was on the airplane coming from either from South Africa to Dubai or Dubai to London, there was a documentary on climbing to the Himalayas. And then there was another documentary on people who risk their life or do, I guess you call it extreme sports. Kind of caught my attention, so I looked at it for a few minutes, and one of the interesting things it said is that people who do these kinds of extreme sports, like they'll climb mountains, they'll climb Mount Everest, they'll ride these huge waves, they'll ski down these amazingly steep mountains, they'll fly, hang glide, or do different kinds of human flying or parachuting. It said they have certain kind of chromosomes, and people who have those chromosomes, they need this level of excitement. I thought that was interesting, because you might look at them and say, well, these people seem to be fearless. It's true, they are. But it's a different kind of fearlessness than what we're talking about. I don't know if those people are fearless about when death comes, if they have that kind of fearlessness. Fearlessness in the sense that we talk about it as Krishna's protection, that God is there, He'll take care of me. And that's the ultimate kind of fearlessness. But if you're not afraid, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to surf. And I don't know, it must have been about 16 or so, and we went out surfing, and the waves were much bigger than we thought. And it was very, very scary for me, because I hadn't experienced such big surf. Like, the waves were like twice as big as me. But many people out there were relishing it. They're not afraid. They're used to it. But that's a different kind of fearlessness than we're talking about in Krishna consciousness. That when Krishna comes to take us away, or anything that happens in the material world that we can see as Krishna's arrangement, that devotees more easily accept these things. And so there's a kind of fearlessness in understanding Krishna's desire. When things happen and you understand this is what Krishna wants, it's very easy to go with it. And when you feel that, or you're convinced that because you've surrendered to Krishna, He'll remove all your sinful reactions, He'll protect you spiritually, there's a kind of fearlessness there that you can't have if you're not Krishna conscious. So that's different than, I don't know if all the devotees are willing to go out and ski down steep mountains, ride 50-foot waves, do mountain climbing, as they go up the side of the mountain. And if they slip and fall, that could be extremely dangerous. Or ride bicycles where you go from one mountain to another. And, so many daredevil things. That's a different kind of fearlessness. That kind of fearlessness is not spiritual. It's material kind of fearlessness. And as we've discussed, just because something exists materially doesn't mean it's transcendental. It's considered a transcendental quality. It's material fearlessness, but it doesn't mean necessarily it's connected with God. It's just their nature. Many people are like that. Okay, let's read some more. Unless you have a question. Oh, okay, I'll go back over and see if there's anything that I didn't discuss. So the first point Prabhupada makes is that he refers back to the last verse, materialistic men are attached to wasting their valuable time in the improvement of material conditions of life. So everybody's improving their material condition of life, and Srila Prabhupada is bold enough to tell everyone, you're wasting your time. Nobody thinks they're wasting their time. And the more you get into improving conditions of life, the more you get into doing that yourself and helping other people, the more important you think it is. There are many people in this world, many teachers are helping people improve their material conditions of life, and they feel that they're contributing greatly. And relatively speaking, we can say yes, but Prabhupada's looking at it from an absolute perspective. So from the absolute perspective, it's not helping you get any closer to your eternal relation with Krishna. So in that sense, it's a waste of time. Just like you may go somewhere for a specific reason. Let's say you go shopping at a hardware store. You have to buy certain things to repair something in your house. And then you're doing your email while you're there, and your wife says, hurry up, you're wasting time. So you might think, I'm not wasting time, I'm doing my email, but she means you're wasting time because you came to the store to do something specifically. And we need to get it done, we need to buy it and get out of here. So in that sense, you're wasting time. So that's the sense Prabhupada means, that we're wasting time. No, I'm not wasting time, I'm working hard, I'm becoming wealthy, I built a home, everything's going well, I'm not wasting time. No, you are wasting time because you're here to become self-realized, and if you're not becoming self-realized, guess what? You're wasting time. I have to move around, my foot just fell asleep. Okay. Then Prabhupada elaborates on this point. He said, well, why is it wasting time? Because by doing this, you're preparing your next body. And you've already had innumerable bodies. It's said in Shastra, from time immemorial, we've been in the material world from time immemorial. Or beginningless time sometimes is used. Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses that in his songs. Anadi karma, but this unlimited karma. And Prabhupada explains that we are called eternally conditioned. And it's not that we're eternally conditioned. Prabhupada said actually it's just a dream, it's a short time. But from a material perspective of time, we can't calculate it. So we've been entangled in the material world for such a long time, we can't calculate it, and therefore it is said we are eternally conditioned. It's not that we're eternally conditioned, but we've been conditioned so long that for all intents and purposes, it's called eternally conditioned. Okay, so we're entangled in the cycle of birth and death, and we're not getting out, therefore you're wasting your time. Just like in prison, you can do so many things, but if you do anything to advance your prison life, that's foolish. You should advance yourself. So you get out of prison. If you're not advancing out of prison, then you're wasting your time. You could be getting out of prison, but you're not, so you're wasting your time. That's the idea. So human life's a chance to get out, and if you want freedom from the cycle, stop trying to enjoy the fruits of your work, offer them to Krishna. Because he's the ultimate proprietor. We quoted Bhagavad Gita 9:27, work for the Lord's account. First hear about the Lord, and then when you hear, you can glorify. And then when you glorify, you can remember. So first hear, then glorify, then remember. You got that? 1, 2, 3. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. And then Prabhupada says, when you're hearing, you're glorifying, you're remembering, Krishna's present in that it's identical with Krishna. You don't have to see him. Here, Prabhupada always said, hearing is better than seeing. And if you do this, that's 1, 2, 3, you'll always be in the association of the Lord. The Lord's super soul present in everyone's heart. And by hearing and glorifying, he invites the association of all in his creation. So Krishna makes it easy to associate with him and just hear about him. Wow, that is very easy. How do I meet God? You just glorify him. Anyone can do it, and you'll get success in life. And whatever you're doing, doesn't matter, you'll become successful by hearing and chanting. There are many classes of human beings, and there are the unalloyed devotees. And this process, there's karmis, yogis, jnanis, this process of hearing and chanting is for everybody. Everyone wants to be free of fear. Everyone wants to be happy. The perfect process for this is uttered by Sukadeva Goswami. By hearing and glorifying the Lord, all of a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. So, this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, the 2nd canto, 1st chapter, text 5, fully glorifying the process of hearing chanting, isn't it? And all the benefits you get from it. Okay, so why don't we read another verse? This is text 6 we're just going through. This is foundational philosophy. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Vyam Shuddharma Parinishtaya Janma Labdha Param Pungsam Ante Narayana Smiti. Many devotees have memorized these verses, so once you get to the point of memorizing the main verses of Bhagavad Gita, you can go to there are many important verses in the first canto, second chapter. First verse, first canto, first chapter, and second chapter, many important verses, and then you can go here, and of course, prayers of Queen Kunti, and then also here, these are important verses. Etavan Sankhya Yogabyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labdha Param Pungsam Ante Narayana Smiti. Okay, let's see if you can guess what this means. Etavan, all these, Sakya. Sankhya, complete knowledge of matter and spirit. Yogabyam, knowledge of mystic power. Swadharma, particular occupational duty. Parinishtaya, by full perception. Janma, birth. Labha, gain. Paraha, the supreme pungsam of a person. Ante, at the end. Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Smitihi, remembrance. So, translation, the highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. So this verse is saying, whatever you're doing, either you're a jnani, you're a yogi, or you're a karmi, or a karma yogi. The highest perfection of life achieved by being a jnani, by yogi, by being a karmi or a karma yogi, is to remember the personality of Godhead. And so therefore we say that your knowledge is tested at the time of death. If you remember Krishna, that's perfect. And if you don't, then what's the value of your knowledge? Just like in the Gita, Krishna is looking at Arjuna, he's smiling, and he's saying, what's going on here? What's the value of what you know? Because you're pretty miserable right now. So it's kind of, Krishna was teasing Arjuna by smiling. He's actually trying to get him upset, saying, come on. And then he chastised him. He said, look it. If you actually know something, then you're not going to lament. So, here, if you hear it being said, the perfection of what you know is that you're Krishna conscious, you remember Narayan at the time of death. So, what is the value of everything you've learned? If at the time of death you die in ignorance, it's not valuable. Look, everything has relative value, and Maya makes that which is relatively valuable seem absolutely valuable, and it's not absolutely valuable. What's absolutely valuable is your Krishna consciousness, and that's what you have to relish and hold on to and grasp. Keep it. Don't let it go. Don't give it away. I mean, yeah, you can give it away. Give it to other people, but don't let it out of your heart. So let's read the purport. Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created, sustained, and at the end annihilated is within the compass of the Mahatattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. The existence of Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahatattva, and as such, the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by the discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scripture. The finishing touch. Wow. We can give, that's a nice statement, isn't it? We can give everyone the finishing touch to all their activities. What's the finishing touch? Okay, whatever you're doing, just bring Krishna in. Okay, I'm going to bring Krishna in. Just bring Krishna in. Put him down. Okay, we'll put him down on the table. Just bring Krishna in. That's the finishing touch. So everything, you may be doing something, it's really great, it's really perfect. You have to put the finishing touch on it. And what's the finishing touch? Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna is the finishing touch. Oh, that's a nice one, huh? Would be a nice title for a book, wouldn't it? God, the finishing touch. I'll read that again. This is possible only by association of a pure devotee. What is possible? That you can remember Krishna at the time of death, who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis, in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of Sanakadi rishis, or the 9 celebrated yogendras, who attained perfection only after being situated in the devotional service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotional service by taking to other methods as adopted by the jnanis or yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity. And it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. So this is a nice verse because it's evaluating the success of everything we do by how it's arousing our Krishna consciousness. And materially, it's so easy to consider or think that I'll be successful, or success is a progressive path. It's been defined as success as a progressive path towards a worthy goal. It's one self-development teacher, because self-development teachers, they talk about success, so he gave this definition. This was his definition, is gradual realization of a worthy goal. Okay, that's okay, but what's the worthy goal? So in the material sense, you define your worthy goal based on what it is that you want to achieve. It's worthy because it's good for you, and it's worthy because it's good for others. Good in the relative sense. Materially speaking, it's good. According to your estimation, it's good. Now here's another standard. What is a worthy goal? A worthy goal is what helps you remember Krishna. Because if you remember Krishna, then you go back to Krishna, and the perfection, again, is to get out of jail. So any goal in jail which doesn't get you out of jail isn't a worthy goal. Although relatively it may be worthy. Maybe you paint your jail cell. Okay, that's a worthy goal. You have nice paint. You feel good, as good as you can feel in jail, because you painted it a nice color, pleasing. Okay. That has relative value. So it's not that we don't see the importance of relative value. We just don't see the importance when things of relative value obliviate things of absolute value. And so that's Prabhupada's whole point. So Prabhupada, he didn't come to put down material civilization cent per cent. He really came to help us utilize what material civilization offers in the service of Krishna. Said it's okay. So then everything's okay, no problem. But all these wonderful things, when they're not used for Krishna, then they become entanglements. They become causes of taking another body. And something is very interesting, because Material nature, in a sense, seems quite innocent, isn't it? It's like, okay, I'm just working, or I'm just going to school, I'm just going about my business, I'm shopping, I'm taking care of family. Okay, we have to do these things. Seems quite innocent. But from the absolute sense, all these things are preparing our next body. They're actually entanglements. They're making us, they're causing us to become more attached to our body, to our material existence. And therefore, they become the causes of repeated birth and death. So in that sense, these activities, when you strip away Krishna, these activities are leading us into further suffering. So they're actually quite horrible. Now, they don't seem horrible. People are going around about their business. Mothers are taking care of their children. Husbands are working hard in companies to provide things that people need, or people think they need, to make our lives more comfortable. All right, it looks like everything's fine. But actually it's not fine. I was a brand new devotee. Just a few months after I'd been a devotee, I was driving with Hansadutta and his wife Himavati, and we were driving in Northern California. And we were driving through the mountains, and there were many cows. And I said, oh, this is like the spiritual world. And she said that when she was with Prabhupada, she had said the same thing when she saw the cows, and Prabhupada said, no. He said, these cows are going to be slaughtered. So it's not like the spiritual world. It seems like it, oh, these beautiful cows. He said, no, this material world is a slaughterhouse. So Prabhupada had to just clarify the vision. No, it's not like that in the spiritual world. So what seems innocent, or even Krishna conscious, when you see it from a spiritual point of view, you see all these things are leading people to repeated birth and death. So in that sense, everything is really horrible. Your great teachers, your great education, the great philosophers, and the learning that's going on, and the roads that are being constructed, and the new buildings that are going up, and the young couples that are getting married, and the people having a good time on vacation, and all these amazingly wonderful things that are going on, which we call progress, and all the technology that's being developed now, and the technology that's predicted to be developed in the future, which we're all very enthusiastic about. They're going to have this, and they're going to have that, and this will make life easier, and all these things which we often look forward to, or we glorify as amazing and wonderful, are actually entangling us in the material world. So they look good, but actually they're really horrible. It's like a nightmare. It's a camouflage, basically. Material life is a camouflaged nightmare, and the nicer material life is, the more it's camouflaged. When it gets really nice, it's very easy to forget that it's camouflaged. And sometimes Prabhupada would make these points that when material life is very, very nice, then you forget what's actually going on. That's why he made that joke that there's no happiness in the material world, but if there is any, it's in Hawaii, which means it's so nice, the weather's so nice, everything's so nice, that you actually forget where you are. You forget you're in the material world. And you forget that all this niceness is just leading us to another body. And so, the material world is actually one big nightmare. It's one big horror movie. But we don't see it that way. Of course, I don't mean that you go around in a state of horror right now. You heard my class, so now you're going to walk around and say everything's horrible, and you go into a state of trauma and depression. I can't deal with anything, everything's horrible. No. The devotee is very happy. The devotee is very blissful. Even though a devotee understands the nature of this world, the devotee is blissful because by understanding the nature of this world, it brings them closer to Krishna. And so when you and I are closer to Krishna, then everything's very blissful, isn't it? So our philosophy is that we understand the misery of this world, we understand the nightmare of this world, we understand the horror story of this world, but we understand how to bring Krishna into all of that. So when you bring Krishna into the nightmare, it's not a nightmare. When you bring Krishna into the horror story, it's no longer a horror story. And everything's nice. And so now we can do the same things we were doing before, But now it's nice because it's leading us to Krishna. So everything's good. So devotees are good. No more nightmares, no more horror story. Now you can go to school, now you can work, now you can raise a family. Now you can sing, you can dance, you can do all these things, which non-devotees do. You can celebrate, they celebrate, but your celebration is awakening you to eternal life. So our position is very fortunate, very special, isn't it? You agree? Do you agree with me? You do. Thank you. Okay. Let's read another verse. We're on a roll. We read 3 verses yesterday. We can read 3 verses today. If that's okay with you. Now we're going to Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 1, and this will be verse number 7. Prayena munayo rajan nirvitta vidhi siddhataha nargunya sta ramante sma gunamukhatate katane hare. I don't know this verse. I'm embarrassed to say. You could say I was struggling to chant it. Prayena munayo rajan nirvitta vidhi siddhataha nargunyasta ramante sma gunamukhatane hare. Translation. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. So what does it mean, topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles, the liberated souls? So the reason he's making this point is there's this idea when you become liberated, then you become detached from everything. And here, the opposite point is being, well, not the opposite point, but when you become liberated, you become attached to what? To Krishna. Yes, you're still detached from everything, but you're attached to Krishna. So I think Prabhupada will make that point in the purport. So let's read the purport. The topmost transcendentalist is a liberated soul and is therefore not within the purview of the regulative principles. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Generally, liberated souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. As mentioned above, since Narayana Hari, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. The topmost transcendentalists, or the liberated souls, realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge. And therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are all divyam, or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy takes it for granted that the Lord is one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental nature of the Lord's form, name, etc. The topmost transcendentalist is not interested in anything material, and is taking interest in the matter of the Lord's activities is definite proof that the Lord is not like one of us in the material world. In the Vedic literatures also, it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is one, but that he is engaged in his transcendental pastimes in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and that simultaneously he is present as the Supersoul, an expansion of Baladev in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, The highest perfection of transcendental realization is to take pleasure in hearing and describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord and not in merging into his impersonal Brahman effulgence, for which the impersonalist monist aspires. Real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of the transcendental Lord, and not in the feeling of being situated in his impersonal feature. But there are also others who are not the topmost transcendentalists, but are in a lower status and who do not take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Rather, they discuss the activities of the Lord formally with the aim of merging into his existence. So, this verse and purport, Prabhupada's talking about the impersonalist. And the impersonalists, as we're saying, their goal is not to hear and chant about Krishna, and if they do, it's to achieve Brahman. And they believe that when you achieve Brahman, that you would be detached from everything. And Prabhupada's point is that Brahman, or as Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, is now Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I am that Brahman. So Brahman is stage 1. It's not stage 3. So stage 1 is detachment, but stage 3 is attachment, attraction to Krishna. And so one of the symptoms of advancing in Krishna consciousness is that we become attracted specifically to hearing and chanting. And as some devotees say, well, I'm not an intellectual, I don't like to read, I don't like to study. Well, that's okay. But still, hearing and chanting is important. That's a sign that we're advancing. It doesn't mean that you have to hear necessarily something that's very philosophical or intellectual. But you can hear something about Krishna.